Welcome, everybody. I'm Noreen Savage, and this is Starting Out Bright. Thank you so much for being here. And just to get going, I want to tell you who I am and who I'm not very briefly. First of all, I am nobody official with Bright Line Eating, but the program has done a lot for me. And I got acquainted by my friend who posted on Facebook. She said, my friend Lori said that she had lost 57 pounds with a program called Bright Line Eating. And if anybody wanted any information, they could just get a hold of her. So my hot little fingers flew over to the messenger, and I proceeded to ask Lori what was the scoop. And she told me about a book written by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson called Bright Line Eating. And in the book, Dr. Thompson talks about 4 bright lines that you don't cross. No sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, and weighed and measured portions. And when I heard all that, my heart went sick because there was absolutely, positively no way I could do anything that extreme. But here I was, having been dieting for almost 3 decades to try to get my weight under control. But, I didn't think I could do it. My friend and I got together for lunch, and she told me more about the program. She said, Noreen, get the book and get into the community. There's a Facebook group called We Eat Right with Lines. That's the one that I got in. It's a private group, still there, going strong. There are many other Facebook groups, both public and private. They're Starting Out Bright. That's a private group associated with these Zoom chats. Many recipe groups, all kinds of groups. But I got into We Eat Right with Lines, and there I just sat and watched and listened. And what I saw was people losing weight, like a lot of weight, not just 5 or 10 pounds, but 40, 60, 100, 160. And for the first time in a long time, my heart and my hope were starting to rise, and I felt maybe I could do this. And I promised myself that if I lasted 1 year on Bright Line Eating, I would do what Lori did. I would post on my Facebook page, and I would help anybody I could. Well, I got started in July 2020 or 2019. In July 2020, here it was, the time of the pandemic, and I'm getting ready to post. And at that point, I felt God say to me, Noreen, you can do more than that. You could have Zooms and connect people. These people who had been so inspirational to me, if I could just have some of them share their story with those who needed some help and some hope. And so that's how the Zooms began. And I've been so grateful to have every single one who's been able to come in, who gets an email or message from me, and they just say yes and take one for the team. And so tonight we have Karen Casey, and wow, you're in for a treat. Welcome, Karen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
So great. And
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
We got a chance to talk the other night, which was wonderful. And I told a little bit about my story. I didn't share the part that at the time I started, I was 270 pounds, and I'm down 90. So this is, when I say that it has done a lot for me, it has done a lot for me. But Karen, if you could you take us back to where you were, like entering into Bright Line Eating? What brought you here? What is your startup? What did that look like?
Sure. So I was a low carber for a number of years, and I felt like I did a decent job managing the weight part of life through low carbing. But then COVID hit, and I was eating, and I really was questioning, why was I eating so much? I couldn't even taste the food at certain points in time. It was just eating to eat. I've always kind of eaten for entertainment purposes, like going out with friends. It's part of the social life for myself. But I just felt like this had gone beyond that. This was just not making any sense anymore. And I had put on quite a bit of weight over COVID. And I thought, this has to change. Something is not right here. But I have to say, it was 8 months of questioning whether I was eating too much. Like I was just starting to ask myself why, versus before I didn't really pay attention to the psychology side of it. I just figured, oh, I like food. I like to be entertained. That's what I do. I'm not a drinker. I've never really been a drinker. So I just felt like that was part of my identity. But now with Bright Line Eating, I'm realizing it can still be a part of my identity. I can still be out with friends and socialize, but just make different choices when I'm out.
Well, we're going to have to talk about that.
That feels really good.
We're going to have to talk about that because, you know, I think that one thing when you say the low carb, I did low carb too. Different programs with low carb. When you say low carb, and we didn't talk much about this. Did you just like hang out with vegetables all the time, or were you doing
goodness, no. If I was hanging out with vegetables, it probably would have been much better seen than it was. I ate everything that doesn't have very many carbs in it. So lots of meat, lots of cheeses. I do like vegetables. I always did like a lot of vegetables, but that wasn't the primary source of my what I was consuming by any means. When I was low carbing, I would be eating bacon and sausage and cheese and high sodium items.
And so this may have been kind of teetering with keto too a little bit, right?
Right, and I never paid attention. People talk about micros and macros and counting all this kind of stuff. I was not interested in that. I just plain old wanted to know if I eat a certain number of low carb items, I'm not going to gain weight, or I could actually lose weight by really cutting back on breads and pasta and potatoes and things of that nature. As a matter of fact, I don't think I had a banana for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Which is, now that I eat bananas almost daily, it's just quite sad that I look back at 20 years of like not eating a banana. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't constantly low carbing. I was just doing that as a way to manage the weight. So when I would cheat, I wasn't going for those foods that had nutritional value and carbs. I was going for the garbage, you know.
We had a comment here, bananas, yes. You bet. You know, that was my very first meal with Bright Line Eating with I had a food scale instead of a proper scale. But I mean, I had a postage scale to start out because I was pretty cheap. I did not meaning to be cheap, but I just had spent so much money on every other program. I didn't want to spend more on this. So, you know, I was kind of trying out, you know, how the weighing and measuring was going. And I understand that was a real fun thing for you too, weighing and measuring.
I 100% for several months was just completely against the idea. I couldn't stand the thought of it. As a matter of fact, it was probably a major part of why I resisted so much at first after reading about Bright Line Eating and hearing about it. I was very resistant to it. Now I absolutely love it. As a matter of fact, my lunch fruit happened to be exactly 6 ounces today. Again, I'm like, okay, this keeps happening. I think, you know, you do after so much time goes by, you can kind of eyeball. But I'm still measuring. I measure absolutely everything that I eat, and I love it. I can't believe how much I love it. Because at first it was just
that was the one line that I thought was just, that's kind of crazy. If this is bad enough, I'm going to eliminate all sugar and flour, but to have to weigh everything too, I was resistant too to the idea, but I could not believe that was the piece that really got the automaticity for me, I think really stuck in my mind because I knew it was exactly right.
It seems so confining, but it's actually unbelievably freeing because you know you're getting exactly what you need when you need it. And I just never experienced anything like this in my life. So it's thrilling, actually.
So
I'm
when you
just
say
super
too,
grateful.
when you were saying you were managing your weight, you were
Mhm.
trying to manage, there was another source that you were trying to manage it with though too, not just low carbs. What
Right.
our
So, well,
conversation is.
actually, when I was low carbing, I didn't have to exercise like crazy because that was not an issue. But in years past, because I'm at level 5, but in years past, as a teenager, in particular, I would definitely exercise my way through. Like I was going to indulge because I knew I could ride my bike for 20 miles. It's not a problem. So I'm going to indulge and have this or bike ride and then indulge because I've taken my bike ride. Now I take my bike ride. I'm still a bike rider and I'm still a walker. But I feel like now it's seriously, it's just fuel, which is what it should be. Food should be fuel. And you can talk all you want about what it should be and what it actually is for a person. And I feel like my two things have finally lined up. Like it is actually fuel now. And I give tons of credit to the program for opening my eyes to that.
I think there was one piece too that you said there was a part in the book that Susan talks about fuel. I can't remember exactly how it
Yes.
goes.
So I took put my glasses on real quick. She said, you'll be coming to each meal with an eager stomach and a body that truly wants and needs fuel. And that was one of those things I didn't know it was going to happen yet. Just like so many of the other things that were in the book, I didn't realize it was going to actually click for me. But now that I've been on it for a while and found the success with it, it's absolutely true. And that's again where the gratitude comes in. And then in the book, it said about your brain will heal. And I like to say, like, I didn't know my brain needed to be healed, but evidently it did.
Well, where were you on the susceptibility scale?
Oh, I was a 10.
For someone who's new, who has no idea what bright line eating is, as I said, there's a book, but there's also a susceptibility quiz that you can take by, I believe, going to brightlineeating.com and put in the search susceptibility. And you find out just where you are as far as possible addiction, but how much does food have over on you? And so when you're looking at Karen, and I'm looking at you, Karen, someone, even when you had not lost the weight, you would not have appeared to me like you really have a food problem. As you're saying, you're exercising, you're dieting, you're trying to keep the extra weight at bay, just whatever, but that doesn't change what's going on in our head.
Right.
And
I would have to say there were 4 times in my life since I was about 15 or 16, 4 times in my life when I was not dieting. And that would have been for each of my pregnancies. I have 4 kids. I hate to say kids. Some of them are rather old, but I have 4 offspring, shall we say. So that's the only time I didn't concern myself with what I was eating or how much exercise I was getting.
And so during those times is when you felt your susceptibility to.
Well, during those times, during COVID, just at different points when I'm kind of a black and white person. I'm either on it or I'm off something, basically. So when I would be off, I'd be way off. And when I'm on, I can usually kind of make up my mind pretty well to just do whatever it is that I set my mind to. But it depends on what else is happening.
So you got the book and then you waited for a while to jump in.
Oh, it's a long while.
And I didn't realize that. So you waited until.
It was quite a while. It was several months. So I did what some people do. I wasn't on like Brightline official or anything like that. I just Google searched Brightline eating and there was a YouTube video. It wasn't an interview. It was like a video of someone who was following Brightline eating. And I believe it was a couple. They were purchasing their foods and getting everything organized. And it was just this unbelievable amount of vegetables and fruit coming into the house and talking about the scale. And I was just like, oh, I could not have been less interested. Because to me, that was overwhelming. I'm not a cook by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a planner. I'm very goal oriented. When I set a goal, I'm going to achieve it, but I'm not a planner, if that makes sense. Like I'm not, like even to this day, I know that I have the proper foods in my house, the Bright Line Eating compliant foods in abundance. And I will literally just grab everything out that I need. It doesn't matter to me what I'm eating anymore. It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to make, as Susan calls it, make food sexy or anything. I'm just literally just eating because I'm hungry.
And which is
for the most part.
Which is interesting because you said at one time you were considered a baker.
Oh yeah.
And so those kinds of like recipe things have not been really part of your menu planning. You've really kept it simple, you said.
Oh, without a doubt.
And so
yeah, and it's not anything against that. It's just that I think I'm more about efficiency and like for example, my lunch today, I had cucumber, tomato, some chopped up red pepper that I already had chopped up, and a little bit of green beans that were left over. Literally threw it on the scale, measured the 6 ounces. The fruit, I literally just grabbed a cutie and some blueberries and some grapes, threw it on a plate. For my protein, I just put on cottage cheese with the fruit. And my fat was the dressing on the vegetables. So just super, super, super basic because it works. It tastes good. I actually sprinkled some garlic powder and a little bit of salt on the vegetables. And I mean, it was delicious.
And it sounds like some variety.
And satisfying. Yeah, I like to, so that's one thing, as simple as I do like to keep everything, my lunch is almost always raw vegetables. And my dinner almost always consists of cooked vegetables. Because I feel like I'm still doing the 6 and 14, 6 ounces for lunch, 14 for dinner, just because I feel like there's not so much time between lunch and dinner. And then I don't get tempted to eat again after dinner because I'm very, very satisfied with all the vegetables.
And are you specifically doing raw vegetables at lunch beyond having the 6 ounces for that? But is it for nutritious as far as enzymes or anything?
Part of it is for the nutritional factors that are involved there, because you're not losing any of the nutrients that way.
Right.
But actually, it's more out of like quick.
Oh. Okay.
And I can eat 6 ounces of anything raw. It's not going to matter as much. Whereas, you know, for dinner last night, I had almost 14 ounces, almost all of asparagus. And I would not be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to eat like 14 ounces of raw broccoli or even 14 ounces of rice cauliflower or something like that. So you don't I feel like for 6 ounces, I can mix it up and eat it raw.
So you don't really meal prep even the veggies like ahead of time and have those?
So I do have some diced up vegetables that last a little bit longer, like celery, red pepper, yellow pepper, green pepper, orange peppers, onion, I might have diced up. So then those I can just kind of sprinkle on, but I'm not eating like obviously 14 ounces of onion, you know, or even 6 ounces of that. And then sometimes with the dinner, if I'm not quite getting the 14 ounces in something cooked, I will grab some of those that are chopped and just sprinkle it on top. Then there's another extra fresh crunch to the vegetables. But everything is very simple.
So besides like the bananas, adding those in, did you totally do a flip-flop of your diet from the old, and I don't call Bright Line Eating a diet.
No, I know what you mean. No.
But I mean the low carb days, did you just totally do a 180?
Having grains and having fruit twice a day now. Well, fruit is always twice a day, but I eat more grains because I'm on maintenance. Having that for 1 or 2 meals is just like a dream. I feel like it's just so satisfying and delicious. So,
excuse me. Okay. What are the kind of habits that you did, because if you waited a while, there had to be some kind of setup. I mean, you're talking like you're more task oriented, it sounds
Mhm.
like. So what were the things that you did to start really working the program? Or were you just like setting up your meals by food, not food prep so much, but did you write it in a journal or what did you do?
So so what I did, I started on December 1st for 23 days, which to me was a very bizarre time to start. I don't want to call it a diet either. We know actually my kids all know it's a food plan. I call it a food plan. When I first started it, I started it on December 1st and I thought to myself, you know what, I just want to see what a few weeks can do for me. You know, Susan talks about the 2 weeks, the 14-day challenge and all that. And I thought, you know what, I want to give it the old college try. I want to see what is a couple weeks going to do for me. So I call it my test run. I did 23 straight days and I was stunned to have lost 11 pounds. Like stunned. I mean, I just could not believe it. And I didn't weigh for the first 23 days either. I've gone from weighing myself every single day, literally for decades, to now I weigh myself every 10 days just to check in. But so after the first 23 days, I gave it that test, was amazed at how it worked. Even though I was amazed, I still wasn't ready to commit. Like I said, I'm kind of black and white. If I'm in, I'm in. So I took that time. The 23rd is a birthday in the family, and then Christmas and New Year's and all that. And then I started my real plan, my real commitment on January 3rd, 2021. And 2 days ago, it was day 500.
That's just, whew.
And I'm telling you, I used to read other people's posts, and I thought anyone that went anywhere near 500 days was like a rock star. You know, it was just like, how in the world are they doing that? But when you break it down to one meal at a time, one day at a time, you realize like this is doable and it's so sustainable because I'm enjoying everything I eat, everything.
And it's even funny because I can track with what you're saying where you can have a mixture. Sometimes my plate looks like a hodgepodge because I'm like the leftover queen at my house. My husband's a great cook and I prepare my breakfast and my lunch, but he normally prepares dinner. But my lunch is mostly leftovers. So if there's 1 ounce of scrambled eggs in the fridge, I'll use that and I'll have just a chaos it would look like. But to me, it is just right. It's all measured. It's perfectly bright. And I know that I've got what I need. It's satisfying.
I think that's what was missing for me before with low carbing. So I feel like there's 4 philosophies that I've gone through. One is just eating for entertainment. That's pretty obvious. 2, exercising to be able to indulge. Then the 3rd philosophy that I kept for quite some time was the low carbing. But I realized, first of all, I wasn't making the healthiest choices with low carbing. And then there was zero attention given to quantities for me because I wasn't counting macros or micros or anything like that. I was just literally eating whatever I wanted to as long as it didn't have a high carb count. And now I'm in my 4th stage of I really feel like the philosophy is that's hitting home and I plan on having for the rest of my life is that food is fuel. And I feel like I don't want to jinx anything, but I feel like it's finally has connected.
Okay, so those are all in their own really great observations of what you've gone through and where you are right now. I mean, for me, like even going back to the susceptibility quiz, I didn't believe it. I had to redo it. And then I was a 10 again, 2 times in a row. And someone may look at me and like, well, you're a food addict, Noreen. I don't call myself that. I just don't associate with that term for myself. We all have our own thoughts about it. But lately I've thought, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, for me, if I don't have that peace around food in my life, it actually makes other things really frustrating. Because when I go back to my journey of constantly dieting, just thinking about it all the time. And I did count things, not so much macros, but the points and the carbs and the minutes of exercise and all that kind of stuff. And your brain is just going crazy. At least mine was, just in that I couldn't have peace just eating the food. It was always something more than that. So when you bring up like the entertainment, or if I do so many minutes of exercise, I can have that piece of cake or whatever. It kind of speaks to what most of us, I believe, go through.
And I used to think that was worth it. I did. I thought it was worth it. I thought, oh, I can spend 60 minutes on the elliptical sweating bullets, and that's fine. But as I got a little older, I kept thinking, I can't keep this up. I'm going to have actually, I have a little bit of arthritis in one of my knees. And I think it's from an old injury, but I'm thinking I can't keep doing that physically. Not that I don't want to be active, because I'm still active, but I don't want to do it for that reason anymore.
Mm-hmm. I totally get that. I want to back up to when you said you weigh every 10 days.
Yes.
You specifically,
Love it.
specifically weigh certain days.
I do.
It's not like just, okay, I'm counting the 10th day. I love the way that you do it. So please share that.
All right. And again, this is after coming from, literally, I could tell you what I weighed on every single day since 1998. I have all my little calendars. But anyway, I weigh on the 7th, the 17th, and the 27th of each month. And to me, that it sounds so structured again, but it's so freeing. It's like, I'm not going to concern myself with that because it's not my day. And what was kind of fun too, my 500th day landed on the 17th the other day.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because I don't want to use it as an excuse like, oh, wow, I'm on maintenance, but I still actually lost a pound since the last 10 days. So maybe I could have this or have that. Like, I don't want that. I don't want those gains. So it's just weigh on those specific days. I always know what I've eaten because it's all written down. And that's another thing. I write it down either right before I'm about to eat it or after I eat it. I don't plan that. Like I mentioned, I have the food in the house and I just know I'm going to eat something compliant. So I don't feel that need, but to each their own about the program, but I don't find it necessary. I'm not that organized.
Well, I don't know though, because you were talking about all the tracking that you do the other night. I mean, you're keeping that very organized.
I do. Certain things are organized, but I'm not a grocery shopper. I'm not gonna. It's just make sure the food is here. It's been brought in. I just buy everything that's compliant. Stock up the cabinets in the fridge, in the freezer, and don't think about it again.
So does everybody in the household eat like you now?
Oh, nobody.
You eat.
And as I laugh about it, no one, nobody has my issue. Nobody, I was the person that couldn't leave the few cookies that were left. I would finish them. Sorry for saying the word cookies, but whatever the case may be, nobody else in the house. There's 5 other people. Nobody has the issue.
So how do you deal with
They would just
temptation?
leave half of whatever. There's not my food all around. It's all over. Like right now, I look over at my counter. It's filled with not my food.
So how does that reflect from you? Like, how do you deal with that?
It just doesn't serve me. Deal with it. It doesn't serve me anymore, is how I look at it. It literally does not serve me anymore. And it's not a solution to anything. Am I going to feel better if I open up that whatever? No, I'm not going to feel better. Probably going to feel worse in the long run. So, and I'm not a crystal vaser. I don't want to mislead anyone. I'm not a crystal vaser. But a lot of the stuff, though, when I was low carbing, I wasn't eating it anyway. Some of the items that are around the house. I mean, we have a gigantic like snack cabinet here. I don't go in that cabinet. That's not where my food's been for a long, long time. So that probably is helpful.
But do
for
you have to
myself.
buy it?
Oh yeah, I mean, it doesn't faze me.
Okay.
Not at all.
That's the tricky part for a lot of people. But you
You
have,
know what I don't like to do though? Don't ask me to handle it. Like once we're home, don't ask me. Nobody would ask me. I mean, my youngest is now 17, so nobody's asking me to get things for them anymore. But I mean, that would not work. I'm not going to open up something and put it on a plate for you. I'm not going to do that. So I don't handle it. But it doesn't bother me. Everyone's very self-sufficient around here. Actually, all my kids cook. All of my kids cook probably out of necessity to a degree, because they want to, they want to eat certain things. So
you have
go for it.
You have a very cool
Yeah.
mantra that you said that kind of goes with this. What is that?
Oh, the not my food is not my solution.
Right.
Yeah. It's because so sometimes let's say I get a little bit tempted, like I said, I'm not a crystal racer, but if I get a little bit tempted by something, I think to myself, you know what? I really need to eat my food first, and then I'll find out if I'm hungry. Actual hunger after I eat my meal, never. It just doesn't happen. Might have to wait 10 minutes or so for things to digest a little bit, 20 minutes at the most. But I'm like, I can no longer just go and grab something when I'm not hungry, which is a fantastic thing. It's like, that was not the case before. I'm not just grabbing it because it's there, because it looks good, and because I know it tastes good. It's just not part of what I do anymore, for the most part.
Well, what about with, you talked like a big piece of your relationship with food was about kind of using it as entertainment.
Oh,
what
for
do
sure.
you do now socially?
Well, I just went to dinner this past Saturday with my husband and another couple. And I just ordered, I had chicken and I didn't put any sauce on it, and it was delicious. And I ordered 2 sides of vegetables. It's amazing. I think we're pretty lucky right now as far as being able to go to restaurants and them having the types of foods that we're looking for. We're looking for clean foods with, you don't need to put anything on there. Little salt and pepper. Maybe you're going to use butter for a fat or something like that, but it's like, at least it's there. Because years ago, many years ago, I don't think it would have been as easy.
And for a beverage, you said you're not.
I have been a water drinker.
Okay.
I've been a water drinker since before it was popular. I've been drinking water since I think I was like 15, and I was choosing to drink water. But I never had the caffeine issue. I was never, ever a coffee drinker. Even the pop we drank growing up was root beer, which most root beers don't have caffeine. So I never developed the caffeine addiction at all. And I like water. Actually, this is a beer mug, which is funny because I've never, ever liked beer in my life. But I use this giant 20-ounce beer mug to drink my water. My kids call it the jug, and they all laugh hysterically when I drink it down real fast. But we have a lot of fun talking about it, though, too.
Well, it makes me wonder, whenever there are children in the home, like what it's doing for the next generation. I definitely think that people are observing. I mean, in many ways, not just at home, but maybe at work too, and in other ways. But the funny thing for me, you talked about the banana thing. That was the very first meal I had, was with the banana. My first breakfast. I'll never forget it. But what was funny for me is I packed my lunch, and it would take me so long to eat lunch, which was crazy because it was normally a sandwich or something before. And I could just like go through that so quickly. But here I'd be eating all my vegetables and all this stuff, and I'm sitting at my desk for a half an hour eating my lunch. Nobody would have ever thought that I was on a program to lose weight. It was just so much food.
Mm-hmm.
It appeared to be so much food.
For the longest time, so I would sit next to my husband and eat my dinner while he was eating whatever he was eating. And many times, especially at first, he was like, "That's a lot of food." I'm like, "I know."
Well, I
I
actually
know.
had that
And I'm
exact conversation.
thrilled to have a lot of food.
Well, what was kind of it was like a truth thing that hit because my husband wouldn't say anything about my eating before bright line eating. Like he didn't make any comments about it. But when he saw all that, and it was 14 ounces of vegetables.
Mhm.
So when I started piling it up, that's a lot.
It
I now
sure
have
is.
12 ounce and then 8 ounce for lunch. But he'd say something, and I finally said one day, you should have seen it. I would imagine what it would look like if I had the seconds and third helpings on one plate. Because I would take a small amount,
Okay.
my first
Mhm.
plate, that looked like a normal plate. But as we're all chatting, there would go another piece of chicken, or there would be some mashed potatoes, another helping of this or that, a little at a time. And I hate to even think what it really would have looked like if it was all at one time. So, how long did it
Right.
take for you to even get to like an automaticity? And then what happened when from there, because it sounds like you went through the weight loss phase fairly quickly. How did
So,
it go for maintenance? Like,
so that's what I loved about the idea of the 100 days, because I thought to myself, so after I did the first 23 days, and I was calling it my 14-day challenge, once I made up my mind to really get into it in that January, the idea of 100 days was out there, and I thought, wow, I want to know. And so this is where the goal-oriented side of me comes out. I was like, what would 100 days, what would that really do for me? Because I had, in prior Januaries, I would start writing my food down. I think I might have made it to day 5. That would have been a lot. So I was like, what would it look like if I could try this? Even though it's one day at a time, I still have that 100 days in mind. What would that look like? How would I feel? What would I be eating? How would the variety come into play? Because I can eat a lot of the same things a lot of the time, but not every single day.
right.
So I really wanted to know what that would look like. So that was pretty easy to go. My first 100 days, I went 99 were bright. Like when I say bright, I'm talking bright. There is no extra this or that. I'm either bright or I'm not. So I had 99 straight days were bright. And the only day that wasn't bright was Easter. And I considered that I allowed it. I call those like allowed cheats or whatever you want to call it. But so then at that point I was weighing only every 30 days, or I think I was doing every 30. And then I think that's when I started to do every 10, because I was like, wow, this is coming off. Like I didn't expect it. I surpassed my goal, and like it kept coming off to me without much effort, because I was eating so well. So that's why I say without much effort. I'm not struggling. It wasn't like, oh, I can't eat another this again, or I can't eat another that again. It was like, oh, I could add crushed red pepper to this and I'm not getting migraines anymore. And, oh, these vegetables weigh more, so you don't have to feel like you're eating a tremendous amount of food. Like tomato, the water, the ones that have a lot of water in them, like cucumbers and tomato.
Mm-hmm.
All of these little things that I learned in those 100 days. And I could not believe the results. I could not get over it.
Well, I think it probably helped that you didn't weigh yourself.
I think that would have been a little too much of a mind game. It would have been too much of a diet mentality type of a thing. It would have been like, oh, I lost this, so now I can treat myself with that, because that's what would happen before. And so there was none of that.
Well, for me, I'm a daily weigher, and I'm kind of interested in this every 10 days thing that you're doing. Here's
I
a
love it.
question. How long have you been on maintenance?
A little over a year.
And did it go pretty smoothly?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You just
I played around with it a little bit. So I didn't exercise. Well, you know what? I did exercise. So I'm an avid walker. Like even at my heaviest, I was walking about 4 miles a day anyway. That's why I was like, how can I still have all this weight on me when I'm walking 4 miles? Like that's when I think that's when it was clicking for me too, that it is the food that I'm eating. It's I can't exercise this away, it's gotta be the food. So, cause I've maintained my walking. I love walking. I walk with a friend a lot of times, or I call a friend and I'm chit-chatting away and I'm like, that 4 miles went quick. And 4 miles is pretty much on the lower end. I walk probably an average of 5.
Wow.
So between 4 and 6. And because I do enjoy it. And they say to pick something you enjoy, right? I mean, and that's how I feel with the food. I'm not going to eat something I don't like. I'm not a mushroom person. Sorry to anyone that loves mushrooms. I'm not a mushroom person. Why would I do that when I have all these other vegetables that I can eat? Same thing with the fruit. Same thing with the grain. If it's not really satisfying and tasting good, why would you do it? Because there's so much to choose from, so much variety.
So what have you added for maintenance?
So I definitely have a whole extra grain at breakfast. So I eat 2 full grains, which is a lot of food. I'm eating 8 ounces of rice or 8 ounces of oatmeal cooked.
Wow.
Cooked rice and
a
cooked
lot.
oatmeal. It's a lot because then I'm having at least a protein, sometimes a protein and a half. I kind of set that up a little bit. I vary that slightly. Like if I know I think I took 4 bike rides in the past week. If I knew I was taking a bike ride, because the weather finally got nice, I'm going to have that extra half a protein or so. Not just, and I do that I'm very aware. I'm not just doing that so I can eat the piece of pie or something. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's where the mindset change came in. I'm doing it literally for fuel. Because if I'm going to ride, I'm probably going to do about 15 miles on my bike and I'm going to need the fuel. So at lunch, I usually have an extra half a protein at lunch. Sometimes I'll have a grain at lunch. And again, that depends a little bit on the activity level, but I'll only have 1 serving at lunch. Because coming from the low carb mindset, I feel like it's probably just a better idea to have the extra in the morning.
Oh, probably.
The extra grain.
I think
because then you're gonna
purposes too, but
mm-hmm.
but you have then brain too. I mean,
yeah, oh yeah,
your brain works on carbs, right? And so
right.
all of that, get this going in the morning. And I can't believe how this time is going away, but I wanted to ask you too about so you say often about consistency, like this has been such an important part for you to be sustainable with this.
Yeah.
So when you say consistency, do you mean just in maintenance, or because that weight loss seemed to go very fast? Do you mean just that you can do this and every day you don't worry like you're going to be up 5 pounds?
I think it's like a combination of everything. I feel like I finally know I'm eating the right foods and the right amount of foods. I'm feeling very comfortable in my clothes. There's no concern at all on the 7th, the 17th, or the 27th. There's no concern in my mind at all. Like I am never like, oh, how did that happen? Whereas in the past, I could have eaten a burrito and it would have been, overnight. So that's, to me, the whole thing is just very level, very like an even-keeled experience. And I love that.
And the whole goal is to get to maintenance and to have that freedom,
Mhm.
that you're not like worried. I don't know if you got rid of all the rest of your clothes in your closet or if you're still there with, several sizes.
So I did try on all of my pants and got rid of the majority of them. And that felt really, really good. The only ones that I was actually still able to keep, they were ones that were probably tight then and are somewhat loose now. Then there were some that were falling off, and that was awesome. Literally falling off.
And shocking, because you said that you got lower than what you thought that
Yeah.
you ever would. And so you had, and you're fairly tall, so that had to really be showing up on you if you got lower than what you thought that you would even be able to manage.
Yeah, I mean, numbers wise, if we're talking like numbers, if I would have ever gotten to where first of all, I have never been what I am right now in decades, literally decades. But let's see, I want to do the math right. If I was about 10 pounds higher, it would have been because I had some god awful flu.
Okay.
And I was like dehydrated. And now I'm like, you mean I'm this? But I'm feeling really good and I'm nourished and satisfied and everything else. That to me is amazing.
That is so great. It's what it's all about. You said a little bit earlier that you didn't have migraines anymore. Are there any other non-scale victories that you have?
So the migraines, I used to avoid crushed red pepper because I swore it was a trigger. And now I put it on almost absolutely everything. And I love it. And so I'm wondering what it was. Was it something else was it pizza crust that I was putting the crushed red pepper on? Was there something in that crust that was bothering me or what? But, so yeah, I'm thrilled to say I can have that because it's free and makes things, flavorful. So I like that. But celery, if you would have told me 2 years ago that I would be adding chunks of celery to like everything I eat, I would have been like, you don't know me. I can't stand celery. And now celery, because it weighs more, it's a heavier vegetable. It's in the majority of my dinners. Just dice it up and throw it in.
And cooked
Yes.
Celery, right?
Yes.
So,
but barely cooked. I don't cook it like.
So for that, your taste buds have changed, but are there any other things that changed for you in your mind or anything that you
food? I mean, food being fuel, like food truly being used to fuel me is huge. Yeah. That's a huge mindset shift for sure.
And so that is a total shift if you're going from food as fun, basically. And, the more that, we look around us, I mean, I know for myself, I saw a quote this past week, a pastor was talking about have courage to do something that sets you apart from being mediocre. Otherwise, you can look the same way as everybody, do the same things, eat the same way. And I thought, wow, when he said eat the same way, I thought, how many times there is a challenge specifically because you're going to eat that way like for the rest of your life? Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And what other things would we judge so harshly? I mean, seriously, when it comes down to basically the food that we're eating. But when we look around society, why wouldn't we think we have to fit in? Because so many things have been about you can't have birthday without birthday cake. You can't have, breakfast meeting without a box of donuts. You can't have these things without the accompanying food that goes with it or the beverage that goes with it. Who goes out for dinner and doesn't have this or that? You know? And so making these changes in the beginning, I think, does take courage, but then it just becomes so normal, don't you think?
I do, but Noreen, that just is reminding me of, so I told you I basically was never one to drink, not for any reason other than it just, well, actually I used to say I'd rather eat my calories than drink them. So that
We're
was
strategic.
that was part of it, but it wasn't like I never had like some issue or whatever. It's just not in me. I feel like I remember things better. I enjoy things better when I don't and all that. So I think that's been part of my identity for so long. And everybody who really knows me doesn't think anything of that anymore. Because like I was telling you the other night, like people are thrilled to have me as their designated driver because I am all about visiting and socializing with my friends. I don't need to drink to do that, right? So I think that actually has helped me with the food situation. Like because I guess, when you reach level 5 too, you really care less and less of what people are thinking or saying or whatever. It's like, if that's not going to serve me, so I'm not going to have it to satisfy someone else. Like that
You
makes
probably feel
no
sick
sense.
anyway.
Right. And it just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Kind of like you tell teenage kids not to get involved in the peer pressure. It's the same thing.
Right.
Why would we possibly care? And I think the more you feel like it's part of your identity, the easier that becomes. Like I never in decades have felt the need to explain the fact that I'm drinking water while everybody else is having whatever they're having. I don't need to explain it. And it's been years of that. So I think that has helped.
And I think that after a while, you unconsciously give permission to others to do the same. Like, let them be them and you be you. And
Oh, yeah. You do you, as the kids say now, though. You do you.
You do you.
And I think it's a fantastic little slogan that the kids say to each other because it's like they're more accepting in a way. I mean, I know there's a lot of harsh things going on with social media and things like that for the kids now, but there's also a you do you thing that they have going on too.
And that's, I think that's good.
Mhm.
So here we are, to wrap up. Everything that you've gone through, you've been doing Bright Line Eating since, it's 501 days.
502 today.
Oh, 502. 502 days that you thought before, holy cow, anybody doing that? You are a rock star, Karen.
I didn't think it was possible. So my point in saying that tonight is for everybody else. Like, if this is what you want, if this is what you're going to choose, you can do it.
And that's exactly like, what would you specifically say to someone who is just thinking about trying this? Just you can do it. What else?
I think just not to be overwhelmed. It's actually a lot more simple and basic than what you might think at first. Because like I said, when I was watching that video of these people with all their food all over the place, I thought, oh my gosh. Well, guess what? You can easily open a can of green beans too. You can have a can of beets with, just check the label for sugar. You can have some corn. I didn't eat corn for like 20 years either, by the way. So you can have carrots out of a can. And how quick is that to just chop it all up? Like it doesn't have to be this, if I can do it, anyone can, because I am not a cook. So it can be simple. And you get into a groove. Like at first I was studying it and studying it and studying it, everything. What can I have? What can I have? What can I have? And now it's like, I don't even think about, oh yeah, my vegetable, my fruit, my fat, my protein, we're good. It surprisingly pretty quickly, I would say, it becomes just easy. It makes sense.
You literally can make a meal by just seeing what you have. Because now it is your identity. It is a part of you. You know all the calculations in your head. At least I do. After it really took 5 weeks for me before it just all clicked. I studied too, like you did.
I do still have so I made that document with all you had it in the slideshow at first, but I do still have that hanging on my fridge as a reference, but I almost never have to use it, but at least it's there.
Right.
So if there's any question, or if I'm having an unusual amount, like, oh, I've never had an eighth of this, I'm going to have, or whatever the case may be. So I do still have it there as a reference. But you don't have to make it complicated.
No. And I think the least complicated, the better.
And depending on the person, like if you love to be in the kitchen and you love to cook, go have at it and have a great time.
And then cook for us too.
Maybe someday I'll actually cook something real. I mean, I just literally, when I throw my stuff together, so a big one for me is the rice cauliflower. I like it very well done. And then I'll throw in some green beans and some peppers and some onions. And I'm just kind of stirring it up. And when I add a little bit of seasoning, which is usually like crushed red pepper or some garlic and salt or something like that and pepper, I'm always like, this is good. It still surprises me.
It's so good. Well, the time has come to a close, Karen. And
so quick.
I just thank you so much for being here.
I hope it helps someone, anybody, reach out to me. I'm on Noreen's page, Starting Out Bright.
Yes.
You can keep it very, very, very simple.
Well, and I really love your ideas about, tracking with the 100 days, with the way that you do your weighing. I think that's really a cool way.
I have fun with that. The one that has the whole year in months, it's so juvenile, but I love it. It's like, oh, I get to color in my little number tonight. And it just makes me happy. It's just something, again, so simple that I love.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to have to close as we do each week. So I'm going to say again, thank you, Karen. And thank you all for being here. Good night. Stay bright. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night, everybody. So, Karen, how would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
Sure.
Okay. So you said during the Zoom chat that you like to keep things simple. But do you have any favorite meal that you prepare?
Well, I mean, breakfast, I think so many of us do love breakfast. I'll either have my 2 servings of rice with scrambled eggs, and I'll do 2.5 scrambled eggs. And then I sprinkle that Cholula hot sauce on it and a little bit of salt. And I love it. And then, of course, the fruit, whatever fruit I have.
Bananas.
Including bananas most days. Bananas, blueberries are my favorite. So I eat blueberries and bananas most days. Cuties I keep around because they're little and I can add about another 1.5 ounces or so of fruit. But then also I do love the oatmeal with plain Greek yogurt and the 6 ounces of fruit. And I literally put it on a plate. I have this gigantic serving of protein of yogurt, 8 ounces. It's a lot. 8 ounces of the oatmeal cooked, steel cut oats. I use steel cut oats, and then the fruit. And I love it. It's very simple, very basic, but I love it. Then that would be for breakfast.
Wonderful. Second question. I want to go back to the point that you said that you were resistant to even get into the program, but you had read the book. So there must have been something in the book that really spoke to you that you hung on to before you got in, that you thought, I'm going to maybe do this. What was it?
Well, I think the couple of quotes that I had written down were very helpful, about the brain needing healing, about willpower being measurable and that it depletes, and then what do you do? Those were huge. But I would say that number one was about coming to each meal with an eager stomach and a body that truly wants and needs the fuel. I love that idea. I thought if that can actually happen, that would be fantastic. And
that you would come to the meal and you're ready to eat.
Ready to eat, needing the fuel, thinking it's delicious. I thought if all those things are true, I'm in.
Yeah,
So,
who knew you could go from breakfast to lunch without snacking in between?
mhm,
Whereas like all these diets, they actually suggest that you have this healthy snack in between.
right,
So that's just a brand new concept, really. It was for me.
for
Because,
sure.
because who can do that? Well, I have one more question. This is for all the marbles.
I was hoping for marbles.
Um, if you could give one piece of advice, or maybe it's a piece of advice that you received or you got from somebody, what would it be?
Nice. I think just to keep it as simple or as challenging as you would like it to be, because there's no wrong way to do it as long as you're in the parameters of the 4 bright lines. There is no wrong choice. And give it a try and see. You know, who knows, maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, I'll be like, oh, I bought this book and I can't believe all the things I've made. And, but I could very well be saying I'm still eating the same things and I'm fine. So I just think, just give it a chance. And like I said, you don't have to make it any more challenging than you want to. Some people have more time. Some people want to be in the kitchen. Some people despise it. So, yeah.
And you can do it simply, like
Yep.
the book, or
And
you
it
can go
works.
to the brightlineeating.com. You can sign up for all access. There are just like so many ways that you can do this. There's not one right or one wrong
Right.
way. The way
As
that
long as you're
works,
within
the way
those
that works.
4 bright lines. Yep.
Exactly. I agree totally. Well, Karen, thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you for playing 3 Question Thursday.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that you came. Good night, everybody.
All right, good night.
Good night. Stay bright.